Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights in-Tulsa talent's work of bridging Tulsa talent with tech opportunities and the revolutionary work around the city. In-Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we are in conversation with Emily Harden, the Program Director of Techlahoma. We discuss the organization and community of Techlahoma, their upcoming conferences and events in 2023, and how connecting technologists can stimulate community, business, and connections in the state of Oklahoma.
Emily, it's so great to have you on this podcast. I'm so excited.
I am too. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Emily, go ahead and introduce yourself to our Grow With Us audience in kind of whatever way you feel comfortable.
Sure. So I'm Emily Harden. I am the Executive Director of Techlahoma Foundation. Techlahoma has been around since 2014. And basically, my role is to facilitate all the creative ideas that our tech community has. So everyone has a cool idea. My job is to make cool idea happen. In my personal life, I am married to my husband, Jeffrey. He's amazing. We have 2 dogs that I love so much, regardless of how much they run around the house and make a mess. And we play a lot of board games and a lot of video games, and I'm a big nerd.
I love it. I was going to say, when you said dogs, it could be kids running around and making a mess.
That's so true. We are proudly, I don't know what it's called, dinkwads?
Dink, yes.
So dual income, no kids with a dog.
Okay.
Dinkwads.
Yes, because dogs are 100% not cost equivalent to a child, but maybe equal when it comes to destruction.
Yeah.
And serotonin, but
Exactly.
also
Yeah.
it's a little teeter-totter of benefits. That's awesome. I had the pleasure of meeting your husband at the Techlahoma town hall that we went to at the end of December, which was really cool. I want to talk a little bit more about that kind of later on. But I want to also kind of give you the floor to talk about your experience with Tulsa. What's your relationship with Tulsa like, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah. So I grew up in Owasso, so Tulsa County. Tulsa was so far away. I was like, what is Tulsa? What is this crazy place? Went to school in Stillwater at OSU, and then spent 6 months in Oklahoma City. And said, nah, I need to go back to Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
And now I live in Tulsa proper, and I love it. I think I was listening to last month's podcast, and like every restaurant that I go to is delicious. And there are people that move here with like Tulsa Remote and different programs, and they'll tell me about a restaurant that I've never heard of.
Yes, I'd love it when that happens.
And I'm like, how do you know about all these places that I've lived here my whole life, basically, and I've never heard of this place. How do you know about this place? So good food, good people. It's just been a great experience being here. And I think there's a really good opportunity for growth and change, and a lot of ability for movement in your career, in your life, figuring out what you want to do. I think Tulsa is a great place for figuring out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And I think what I guess I would add on it, or just editorialize for myself, is that, like, for me, I feel like I have grown with Tulsa, and Tulsa is also grown at the same rate almost as like I have as a person. I mean, I'm in my mid-20s now. I had a birthday like 2 months ago that really stressed me out, that I was in which I don't know, that's ridiculous to say, but 25 was a little scary.
Oh,
but
I'm turning 30 this year. Listen, it's fine.
It's fine. Everything's
It's
fine.
fine.
It's fine. But it kind of allowed me to reflect on, like, I moved to Tulsa when I was 8 or 9 years old, so 2007 or 8. And like, I have seen the city grow so much, just in this Midtown area, which is kind of where I was predominantly approximated to, but also in the North Tulsa area, now more in downtown. Like, just in high school, like, I feel like I've said this on the podcast a lot of times, but other people have echoed it, but like, if you've been a long time Tulsan, the downtown area hasn't been historically the place where people convene for a multitude of reasons. But now I feel like there is a community of people doing different things in the downtown area in such a large and organized effort. Kind of, you've got this entrepreneurial community, you've got this growing innovation in tech space that's growing. You've got the brewery scene, the bars, nightlife. Like, it's kind of all growing at the same time, and so it's kind of it feels inclusive of each other, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm like nodding my head this entire time and forgetting that we're in an audio podcast, and so yeah, totally.
No, nodding is the same. If you weren't nodding, or your version of nodding is my version of when you're talking, going, yeah, I do that constantly.
So throughout this episode, if you hear nothing, it's because I'm nodding. That's why.
Quietly affirming, which we love.
Yes.
Kind of another question about Tulsa, just more roundabout, like, what has just this from a tech perspective, how have you seen that grow? I think that you have a great finger on the pulse on kind of how this community has grown, and what have you seen organically or even naturally kind of in your position?
Yeah. So I started in my position during COVID. So I originally started as community manager in September 2020. So I kind of never got to see the pre-COVID tech scene, really. But I will say that since I've begun in the past 2.5 years, I've really seen the shift in mindset from things like Holberton getting started and expanding and expanding and expanding.
Yes.
36 moving over towards right across the street from Holberton. That's really exciting. We have user groups that are meeting and new people hearing about tech and changing their careers into tech all of the time.
Yeah.
And I think Tulsa has kind of allowed that to happen in a really easy way, in a way that they foster that growth.
Yeah.
We do similar things in Oklahoma City as well. And I think we'll speak to that later, but basically in Tulsa, because I'm here, I'm a little biased. I think there's just such a sense of community and such a sense of people that if you don't know how to help someone else can help you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's like in the tech field as well.
Yeah. And that specific quality is so important to, I think, creating community, but also creating a community that is mutually interested in supporting each other, which I guess is really a foundation of community. How are we uplifting each other? And
exactly.
So I love that. That feels like a tenet kind of Techlahoma and the work that you guys do. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about like your role at Techlahoma and what you do specifically, and also what the organization does.
Yeah. So Techlahoma's mission is to enrich the lives of Oklahoma technologists of all backgrounds through education, connection, and opportunity. So exactly like you said, connecting everyone together, that's like a really big portion of Techlahoma. We put on 3 conferences a year. Those serve like anywhere from 75 to 150 to 250 people. We have user groups that meet monthly, and they kind of delve into specific topics. So, for instance, we have OKC Sharp, which obviously talks about C#. We have people that meet in Tulsa with a Tulsa UX group that are going to talk about user experience, user design. My role primarily is to facilitate those kinds of conversations, make sure that everyone knows who they can connect to get something done. Techlahoma is very much a volunteer-run group. I facilitate the volunteers in doing that. I like to think of myself as the least tech person in Techlahoma. I consider myself tech adjacent. So I want to be the person that can tell you Java and JavaScript are different. I know that. But that's probably like the limit of my tech. And I'm going to rely on the people that know it best to help me and figure out how I can best help serve them. So
yeah, no, I that's so funny. I also consider myself like more tech adjacent because like I know how to use some things, but I don't know how to create those things.
Totally understand.
And obviously that's a specific field and passion that some people have, and I might acquire it. Who knows? Like I could learn a language or two. Maybe we'll see. But
yeah, and that's kind of how I got started too. Like I went to a user group meetup because I was like, what do I want to do with my life? And I went and learned HTML and CSS and said, this is kind of cool. Started on JavaScript and said, no, that's not for me.
Yep.
And that's how I was like, I can do something that talks to tech people. I like working with tech people, my friends, my family, my husband, all tech people. I am not a tech person.
Yeah. And I think like what's at least unifying and kind of interest is that if you're like, I know you mentioned this at the beginning, like playing video games and like, and certain media things, like those like only add to my like tech adjacency, but also like to the people that I know I would have something in common with. I can talk about video games with probably so many people because,
100%.
and I'm sure that person like might be a game developer or like a software engineer or something like that. Obviously not exclusively, but you know, it just creates the overlapping circles.
100%. We actually have an Oklahoma City game dev group and a Tulsa game dev group. I know the Tulsa game dev group, one of their next meetups is going to be at Aru. So
give
cool.
them a plug.
Yes.
They're such a cool place. You should so check them out. It's a VR game cafe and bar and events.
Right.
Like they do lots of really cool stuff.
I think that's a good example of how tech in Tulsa has really kind of shifted. Like we have this location that's entirely fun focused tech space, right? Like that's pretty exciting.
I've never done VR either, so I've got to go do it.
Oh, you have to do it. You might have to take a Dramamine.
That's what I've heard. The motion sickness will come for me, and I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. One of the things that we hinted at kind of a little bit earlier in the conversation was like about how Techlahoma is really inclusive of Oklahoma and its urban centers, so Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And I'm really interested in like that intrastate collaboration between the two. So can you kind of tell me and us a little bit more about how the two cities collaborate through the programming?
Yeah. So we actually were started because there were people in Tulsa and people in Oklahoma City who realized they were doing the same thing and decided to connect and kind of meet with each other and say, hey, we're kind of doing the same thing here. Why don't we pull together and make this thing happen? Mm-hmm. So we actually have conferences that predate the existence of Techlahoma. A lot of our user groups predate the existence of Techlahoma because the initiatives were there. There was just no like combining force location that they could kind of all congregate. So Techlahoma has always been a very open space for anyone in Oklahoma, not just the metros, but anywhere. We have a Slack community of over 5,000 people. There are people in there from around the world, really. Mm-hmm. Mostly you're going to see Oklahomans, of course, but there are people that spoke at previous conferences that are in different countries. And we see people collaborating in the Slack community and in virtual meetups, and we see this like sense of camaraderie of helping each other out and, hey, I can't figure out what's wrong with my code. Can you come help me? And someone else in the Slack community will help them, or finding their first tech job, figuring out if they're getting paid enough. Mm-hmm. We have all sorts of those kinds of problems. And that's not just a Tulsa problem. It's not just an Oklahoma problem, but it's something that we try and communicate and convey, that we want to be there as a sense of community. We want to be there for anyone who needs help so that they can thrive.
Yeah. And I think the Slack space is extremely conducive to kind of this pandemic era that we're, and post-pandemic era that we're kind of living through, where asynchronous is the way. There's Zoom, there's all these ways to connect online. And I think that's probably allowed for the community to grow in a probably non-unique way, in the sense that a lot of these folks in these occupations have been online, but driving more people to be online to then be exposed to those communities that exist online, which is pretty cool to think about. And I thought about that a lot for a while. I've been in the Techlahoma Slack channel for probably like a year and a half or so. And I was like, man, these 4 channels are kind of quiet. And then when we were at the town hall, I was like, Oh yeah, there's a channel browser where you can look at all of the channels.
Yeah.
And there's like probably 100. I was
Yeah,
like, why was I only in like 3 of these?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
the job board one's popping, but like
Yes.
some of them are just like every other day or so there's a
Right.
message, but like I'm sure those like all of those groups are just popping every other day or whatever. And it was so funny this morning, one of the channels that I joined at the town hall meeting, you sent a message in and I was like, I want to be involved in this group. And because you were like, nobody's responded in like a year. And I was like, I want to be involved. It just takes that exposure kind of.
It really does. And there's so many groups in that Slack community. I mean, the Slack community existed prior to COVID. We were streaming a lot of stuff prior to COVID. So we kind of had that, I guess, leg up in the matter with that. But the Slack community is very much community driven. Mm-hmm. So if there's a topic that people are really passionate about, they will make that channel poppin'.
Mm-hmm. They will get people talking.
They will. If the topic has kind of faded away and people aren't interested in it anymore, they aren't interested. We have a memes channel. For a while, there was a channel of showing like your cool desktop and like how you wanted to have your desktop set up. Like,
which is really important, by the way. Like, I bought my first computer, like it sounds weird to say that, but like I bought my first desktop computer, like early in 2021. And I had like the damnedest time with it, honestly. I ended up going through like 2 different consoles, or I guess like towers, because do you want to buy a pre-build? Do you want to build it on your own? Like that decision was like so scary because I was like, I don't even know how to, I don't even know what all I need. Like, how do I know? I'm just going to go with the pre-build. And then the 2 pre-builds I bought didn't work. Within like 2 months, I had to like get 2 new ones. And I was like, this is crazy. And like, I don't know. I didn't really know where to go for like advice, resource, or whatever other than like Google. And now I'm thinking like, I would love to see what someone from Techlahoma, they would probably show me the neon lights, the LED lights, like how the desk, like ergonomics. I need 100%. I need a recommendation on a chair right now because chairs are so important. Like I have 4 lovely cats that are my babies, and I bought this chair from IKEA, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a nice chair. Within like 3 months, it's ripped to shreds. So we can't do that anymore.
Yeah, no. My computer that I have at home was custom built, but I did not build it.
The dream.
Yes. I have a friend, shout out Liza, that is very into building PCs. And so I picked out the pretty case that had the LED light on the front, and I picked that. And she picked out the inside for me and put it together, and it runs smoothly. I picked out my monitor because I wanted the giant screened monitor.
Yeah.
My husband instead got a TV to be his monitor because he's ridiculous.
Yes.
So there's all sorts of options, but I frequently asked the people in the Techlahoma Slack group, is this right? Should I get this? Do I need that? What about this?
Yeah.
All of the time.
And answers came, which is awesome. I love the idea of like Slack communities just being kind of that like help like,
yes,
please on any topic. Another thing that we talked about earlier as kind of one of the offerings of Techlahoma and one of the things that you guys do in large scale were these conferences. And I'm really kind of curious about how those go. You've got the 200 OK, and tell me if I'm saying any of these wrong, the UX OK Design Conference and the Thunder Plains Conference.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about these conferences and their structure.
Sure. So 200 OK and Thunder Plains are very similar. 200 OK, if you've ever gotten like a 404 error on your computer, okay, 200 OK is what comes back when everything's good.
Oh, okay.
So you hopefully never see that unless you're actually a developer and working in there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little pun there. But Techlahoma tends to be very punny, especially if I'm involved. I will make it more punny. But 200 OK is a web developer conference. We consider web dev a lot of things. Web dev, I know, is like sometimes seems like a limited concept, but it's not. Mm-hmm. If it's vaguely related to web dev, it's web dev for us. Yeah. So 200 OK, it has been around since it's our Tulsa web dev conference. Thunder Plains is going to be similar. It's in Oklahoma City. It's a regional web developer conference, so it's going to be a little bit bigger. We do tend to see more people from out of state coming to that conference. We also have a little bit more of a JavaScript specific focus on Thunder Plains. That one also always has 2 tracks. So that means we have 2 speakers speaking at the same time about different topics, meaning there's a lot going on. It's a big conference, a lot of chaos, but controlled, hopefully.
Yes.
Right. UXOK is our newest conference. So that one is going to have its 3rd year this year. The first year was entirely virtual. Thank you, COVID. The second year was in person at the Tulsa Library. And this year it's going to be in Oklahoma City. The user experience conference is kind of interesting because you're doing a user experience and user design conference. So when we look at that, we want the attendees to be our users.
Mm-hmm.
So we want them to have a good experience. So we try and do something a little bit creative. Last year, we had a s'mores bar at the after party and a crostini bar for the snack.
Oh.
Just like fun, interesting, something you wouldn't normally expect at a conference.
Yeah.
We had an activity hour where groups were given like 30 to 45 minutes to come up with a solution to a problem. And once they solved the problem, we like ranked them and figured them out. And some of these designs were incredible that they got done in just such a short amount of time. It was like a very mini hackathon, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty neat. And I think we're going to continue doing that this year. So that's the newest conference. The other 2 are a little more established. But all 3 conferences are significantly cheaper than you're going to see in a normal tech conference where it's $2,000 for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So they're a lot cheaper. We have student pricing. We work with corporate sponsors so they're getting representation. We really like seeing local companies come out and take their team and take a day to learn and experience and come together. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I kind of noticed the spirit of that definitely at the town hall with kind of the corporate sponsorship element there, which you had like a presenting sponsor there, which was really awesome too.
Yeah.
And kind of, I think you kind of articulated this really well at the town hall when you were talking about just the importance of a corporate presence in Techlahoma spaces is just to know that like obviously a lot of these companies, especially if they're tech companies or even if they're tech adjacent companies, would not be operating to the same level of magnitude, if not for the technologists,
right.
for the people that are in this community, and to kind of give them that light.
Yes, exactly.
Especially when it kind of shied away from maybe either from a personality perspective or just, I don't know. It feels like tech work sometimes is seen and considered more behind the scenes, but I think I'm seeing more as this industry is growing, the need for it to be highlighted more. One, as a way to to show value for the work. And 2, to also highlight like how technology is kind of one of those interesting industries where I wouldn't say it's entirely equitable when it comes to like wages and things like that, but it is one of the higher paying occupations where I guess really where the amount of your skills and the harder you work and kind of all of those things equate to some type of dollar amount that feels equivalent to what you're worth a little bit more than some other places. I guess I don't want to throw too many comparisons out there without hard facts, but just from an observational perspective, it kind of feels like that. So it's definitely important to include that corporate perspective.
Yeah. We see a lot of people switching from different careers coming into tech for more of that wage stability, for the ability to come into something without a college degree, to be able to make money and earn based on what you can do and not because everyone gets paid the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Techlahoma is very big on the fact that you do not have to have a traditional 4-year education to be good at your job.
Yeah.
And that's something we really are trying to strive for and advocate for. We have an Oklahoma City program that's going to be starting up this year that's going to feature a 6-month coding boot camp part-time, followed by 4 months of a paid internship. And that's really exciting for us. We're very, very happy. And if everything goes well, hopefully we can bring that to Tulsa as well.
Yeah.
But it's a really exciting opportunity. And we're going to be able to say, like, look, these people they didn't get a 4-year degree, and they are still able to accomplish and complete all of these things. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
The scrappiness of the industry is really important to highlight. And I love that. I think Holberton does a great job of kind of showing
100%.
that as well.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily you have to put in X amount of hours in this thing to be good at something.
Right.
Kind of like you mentioned. And I think that that's kind of the direction that the industry is hopefully going.
Yeah.
But, we're in the game of recruitment services and hiring, and you still do see like some entry level coding jobs wanting a 4-year degree. And it's like, how can that be entry level?
No, I can't quote the specifics because I don't recall what it was, but there was a coding language that's relatively new. I'm going to say 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me on this. And basically, it was 10 years old, and there was a guy who was applying to do a position that included the work there, and they were asking for 15 years experience. And the language was 10 years old, and he created it.
Oh, gosh.
And these kinds of things happen. And Techlahoma is very much an advocate for people that we can do anything we set our minds to. And like, let's kind of make this tech space a space that's open and welcoming and ready to accept people where they are and train them up and get them to the place they need to be to make everyone succeed.
Yeah. And encouraging lifelong learning too is something I see as like a huge value.
100%.
So that's awesome. I love that. I love that our kind of conversation has gone towards that, because I feel like a lot of these things are probably touched on at the conferences.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk. Yeah, I don't. It's almost like maybe it could be my phone or one of us is retrieving something, like getting a little message or something. One last thing about the conferences that I wanted to bring up was that they are you can register for all of them probably now, right? If you're curious, how would you attend one of these conferences?
Yeah. So on our website on techlahoma.org, you can look at all of our conferences. You can register right now for 200 OK. The other 2 conferences, I don't believe registration's open quite yet. But to get alerted about all of that, if you go to techlahoma.org, you can subscribe to our email, and that's a great way to know. We also just launched a formal membership platform. So anyone who attends any event is a member of Techlahoma. We will never stop that from happening as long as I'm around.
Yeah.
That we want to make sure that this is an open space, a communal space. But we have added some membership tiered levels to give some extra perks. So with the tiered levels, one of them gives you a discount to conferences and a discount on swag. The other one does the same at a higher amount, and also you can get exclusive swag. So we're hoping to get some more additional benefits and features for those. I mentioned that because if you wanted a discount on the conference, you're getting a membership.
Yeah, being a member. And Techlahoma is a nonprofit, so all of the money is going to a good cause.
Yes. I will mention we're entirely volunteer run except for myself. So all the money is literally going back into programming. It's back into educating people in tech and making sure that everything's getting covered and that we're reaching as many people as we can. Yeah,
which is so cool. And just to plug, it looks like the 200 OK conference is on May 12th of 2023. So it's coming up here pretty soon.
And it's at Holberton. Our friends at Holberton generously offered to host us. So that's really exciting. We're excited to kind of have like that different type of venue that a normal conference would. So
yes. And oh my gosh, if you haven't been to the Holberton space and you're local to Tulsa, like
it's amazing.
You should so come to this conference to get introduced.
Yes.
It's awesome. Rounding out kind of our discussion here, I'd love to kind of talk about, what are your vision and goals for the year with Techlahoma? How are you planning on growing? And also, how can people get involved?
Sure. So I mentioned a little bit about how people can get involved already, but if you're interested in volunteering, if you're interested in donating, if you're interested in sponsoring, if you're interested in literally anything about Techlahoma, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can also go to techlahoma.org a lot of those links that are emails also come to me directly. So, but it'll just file it away to the appropriate link that I need it to go to. So that would be wonderful. In terms of visions and goals for this year, we are starting this internship program in Oklahoma City. That's going to be taking up a decent amount of time. Our new president and vice president, so our president is Daniel Ashcraft and our vice president is Jasmine Kendricks. Both of them have really taken the initiative that they're going to try and focus in on making sure we're not just hitting the same locations of Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We want to hit, like, host workshops in locations where people may not necessarily have access to free educational resources. So making everything a little more accessible, a little more available. Accessibility was a big push in Thunder Plains. Our Thunder Plains conference literally could have been an accessibility conference with how many people we had submissions about accessibility with. Yeah. So I think I see that push happening this year as well. And just kind of honing in, getting back to our roots, making sure that we're still connecting to that grassroots community and empowering that community to do what you all do best.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think this might be something I say now with the like kind of roundup section of every episode, but like, if you want to be a part of this community, if you want to be like, I guess what it takes kind of, and this is just an affirmation for myself, but putting yourself out there, yourself, getting out 100%. Of your comfort zone is the way that you find community sometimes.
We don't bite.
Yes.
Right. I joined Techlahoma from a random user group meetup, and I was one of 2 people to show up, and I ended up talking for 3 hours to this person. Now this person's one of my best friends. Yeah. So, you really it's a welcoming community. We are here to help serve you and to make your life better. Yeah. So come on down.
The price is right. I love that. I just think that point is so important, especially when, kind of, at least for me in my life and kind of some folks in my vicinity and community, is that it's been like, we've been in COVID or whatever for like 2 to 3 years now almost. It's like finding community feels like the hardest thing to do when a lot of communities exist online, or and that can be super meaningful, but it also can be equally as challenging for maintenance of that community. And so just want to encourage any listeners out there that it is okay to to navigate the uncomfortable, and there are people also doing it at the same time as you. So
I got one of the biggest compliments today. Someone said they came to a user group meetup and they felt comfortable even though they knew nothing about tech.
That's awesome.
And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
That is what we want. If you know absolutely nothing, feel free to come. We're like I said, we don't bite. Yes. Come on down. Price is right style. It's fine.
It can be the smallest interest. It can be the smallest seed of an interest, the size of a mustard seed. And who knows where it'll go. You just have to make that step. Emily, I've had such a good time talking to you.
This has been great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to plug kind of about Techlahoma, or really just anything you want to direct our users, or anything you want to direct our listeners to?
Yeah. Check out techlahoma.org. I'll plug a couple other nonprofits. So Oklahoma Women in Technology. That's another great group to get involved with. If you haven't heard of them, they offer scholarships for people under 18 that are interested in tech and STEM in general. They also have some mentor circles that are really great. Also, TIPROS, Tulsa Young Professionals. That's another group to definitely chat with. And then overall, I'm definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, Emily Harden, Techlahoma Foundation. I'm there. I'm happy to connect with people, chat with people. I apologize if I meet you 10 times and forget your name, but I'm here and happy to meet you 10 times.
I love it. 2023 is also the year of grace. So.
Yes, love that. Love that.
We are giving the grace this year. Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
For our listeners of Grow With Us looking for new opportunities, please join our talent network to stay in touch with our featured jobs and opportunities. You can visit our talent.intulsa website. That's talent.intulsa intulsa.com. And by joining our talent network, you will get access to our newsletter, where you can stay up to date with our latest career advice, featured opportunities with in-Tulsa partner companies, and our placement success stories. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released, and let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. Huge thank you to our editors at Rant9 Production and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.